Hi y'all, welcome back to the garden. Got a few things to show you. So I left off on the last video on past Saturday planting the shrubs and the Starway to Heaven styrax. On Sunday I came out here and planted a hydrangea hedge, cleaned up the rose wall, which I've not shown you an update on in a while, so we're going to take a look at that. And I also want to show you the progress on the hydrangeas, treating the hydrangeas with the iron. So let's take a look at those first. So a lot of my Macrophyllas or 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗦 hybrid hydrangeas were having chlorosis issues this year, and I finally figured out it was just iron chlorosis. That can happen if you have a higher pH soil, higher than 7, closer to 8, and we do tend to have that. So you'll see, since I've treated these, and I'll show you what I treated them with, that all of the new growth is green, and all of the leaves that had the yellow and then with the green veining is turning a really nice green color. These will still continue to green up. So let me show you what I used. Now in my last video, I had someone recommend that I use iron tone, and I had already put iron tone on these. And if you have a higher pH soil, the type of iron found in iron tone isn't really gonna help you. But if you haven't done a soil test, I would recommend you do so you get an idea of where your pH value lands. If you have a higher pH, then you'll need something called EDDHA iron, and this one come from Amazon. I've found the only one that I can find. Fertilome makes one that you can get from 𝗩𝗜𝗗𝗘𝗢𝗏, and I'll put a link below to this one. I'll also put a link to this one. The reason I'm not going to recommend this one to you, but you can buy it, is because they shipped it in this container and just taped the top, and when I got it, iron was all over it. And I don't know if you've used an iron product before, but it will stain. So it turns the water red, it will turn you red. It's tiny, tiny little salt, smaller than salt granules in here. And you can either mix it with water and drench it, which I did here. And then this past week I went through and added a little more just in powder around the root ball and watered it in. And I also did a foliar spray. So I've done all 3 of them on these hydrangeas. And let's show you a couple more that I think are improving over the past week. And just to clarify first, just if you haven't done a soil test doesn't mean you can't use those products. Those products are just a little more expensive because they're specially formulated for people with high pH to be able to allow the plants to absorb the iron. So if you just have like a normal pH issue or normal below 7, around 7, and you're having chlorosis, iron tone or other products that just list iron in there will probably work for you. But for those of us that do have a higher pH, you may need EDDHA iron to resolve your issue. So these hydrangeas were also all having the same issue, and they're also looking better. You can see all these new leaves here are nicely green, and these are the older leaves here that will start to green up as this iron is continued to be absorbed. So this has just been a week. I did spray these 2 yesterday. Some of them, it's odd because some of them look pretty good, although this is kind of a weirdish red leaf. This is 𝗩𝗏𝗡𝗧𝗦, which does turn red and get fall color anyway, so the leaves on it are a little different anyway, because it's a little bit of a hybrid between a 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗦 and a Macrophyllas. But since I have put iron on these, they've started pushing new buds, which is good. So this one pushed one. The 𝗩𝗏𝗡𝗧𝗦 over here also started pushing another one. Let me show you. It's right here, so that's good. And this will look rough this year, probably, unless, I mean, it's put on a good amount of growth over the past week, so it could fill in nicely over the next 3 months and look great by the end of the season. But most of the instructions I've read said to apply that every 3 to 4 months. So next year what I'll do is I will apply that in late winter and water it in, or early spring before the leaves start emerging, and that should get it for part way of the summer. And then I'm not great about remembering those things, so I have a calendar just for my garden stuff that I'll put in there probably this time of the year, the end of July, maybe mid-July, to retreat that process. And you use, it's a very kind of small amount on shrubs, so you can use it for trees too, but for the shrub dosage it's like 1 to 1.5 teaspoons of iron per shrub. And like I mentioned, spraying could also work with the chelated iron. I've not done a whole lot of spraying with shrubs on fertilizer before. I have in the past, but it's not something I do regularly. Plants will absorb nutrients through their foliage, but just make sure if you decide to do something that way, you read the instructions, because sometimes you spray it, let it sit 30 minutes to an hour, and then wash it off. Otherwise, you could potentially burn the foliage. Just follow the instructions on whatever you're using there. When I fertilized, or when I sprayed the iron on all of those things, I included a liquid fertilizer with it as well, to try, now that they have some iron in them, give them some nitrogen to beef them up a little bit. All right, yesterday evening I came through after I got off work, and I staked where I'm gonna put hydrangeas for trialing. And I have a location for every one of the hydrangeas that I have except 3. I kind of underestimated how big some of them get, and so some of the 3 biggest ones that I have, which happen to be varieties that, there's a Bailey one, I think maybe Blushing Bride, because it gets pretty big, or can. I think the estimate's 3 to 6 foot wide. There's Rock and Roll, and then there's one other one, I think it's Stargazer. I'm not sure where I'm going to put those yet. I have completely run out of wood chips for everything, so I've got to evaluate holding some of those plants over a little longer until I find somewhere to put them. I may come through, if I get some wood chips this season, around this tree and expand it a little bit, but I could also hold those hydrangeas over probably somewhere else and maybe move them. I'll do something to get them planted before fall, but I'm not going to be planting them right now. My goal would be to come in this weekend and to plant a lot of those hydrangeas in this location. And I'm gonna do a 2-part series on that. There's so many, I think there's 22-ish hydrangeas in here. There's one that's not marked that I gotta find somewhere to put, but it's a small one, so that won't be a problem. But there's a mix of Prue Winters, Monrovia, Endless Summer, and a couple other varieties in here that should be interesting. And so some of them will get morning sun, some of them will get evening sun. Like right now it's around 7:00 p.m. and you can see the kind of sun that these are still getting this time of day. So they'll be protected most middle part of the day, and then in the morning they'll get some light from this side. Both of them will, so those over here and these, and in the evening you can see how the light's streaming in here as well. Now over time I've planted some bigger things like this Venus dogwood that will grow up and block some shade, but some of those things are going to be many years in the future. There's a big sycamore that I planted here, London plane tree, that will eventually cast some more shade too. But there's still going to be plenty of time for these to fully develop over 3 or 4 years before any of that happens, and allow them to hopefully be good areas to trial these. And then I need to trench under and bring this area water. But a lot of the smaller ones are up front, and then some of the bigger ones are up back, or 1 step back. You notice I didn't put many close to the tree trunk. That's a really dense root zone area that's going to be super competitive for water, even though these will be on drip. And I've staggered them so they won't be any necessarily blocking another from getting enough sun. So they're based on height. This one's 3 by 3. This is Starfield, which is a gorgeous one. I can't wait to show you. My Let's Dance Lovable that I planted under this Rising Sun Redbud are doing really great. So let's take a look back here. They're very pink. I love how pink this variety comes out, but I did put some sulfur underneath them, some aluminum sulfate, to see if I can get some of the blooms to change blue. So I didn't water in the aluminum sulfate. You can see it right under here. It is on the drip line though, so as it drips out, it'll kind of release some of that as the water hits it. And I'm hoping that I'll get some beautiful blue blooms out of these. We'll see. They seem to be doing pretty well. Not scorching or anything despite how much sun they're getting, but they are on drip irrigation every day, which is great. These are supposed to get 4 foot tall and wide. Not sure that they will do that, but every one of them, you can see how quickly these are producing buds on their new growth this year. This variety, I have told you multiple times, I think is going to be a really good contender for us in Southwest Ohio, and it continues to impress me. While we're over in this area, I want to show you these pufferfish hydrangeas, because I've never seen, this is my first year growing them, and I've never seen them do this. but they're called pufferfish because they shoot out this tiny little poof of florets as the blooms age. So you can see here the blooms are looking very green. So these are not a variety that tend to turn pink. There is some blushing I noticed down there at the bottom that's a little pink, but not quite as pink as some of the other paniculatas. But see this little tiny poof here? Isn't that cute? I did come through and plant the Yardline Viburnum that I showed you in a previous video right here. It will grow very upright and look great, and this is south facing. As I mentioned, it's a zone 7 plant, so we're going to see if we can get that to live here in Southwest Ohio for several years and give that a trial. This entire side of the house is still a work in progress, so this Viburnum has to come out. This specific kind I'm super allergic to, and so I pulled some out last year and I never got around to removing these. So I'm gonna wait until this fall when the leaves fall off. So hopefully it won't cause me as much of an issue. Cut those down and see if I can pull out the trunks of those. I've got a hydrangea to plant here. And this is a pinpoint blue cypress or false cypress. That will grow very upright too and be really beautiful. There's not a whole lot that I've done here, although there is a rose planted in the corner. This is a box that my irrigation is going to come up on, and so until I get that in the ground this fall, I didn't want to do any planting here, so it's kind of weedy. So I don't know if I've showed you this area before, but I haven't probably because it's a weedy mess, and that's just the way some of these areas are until I get the infrastructure in. Everything I planted last Saturday is looking good in this border. I come and check on it every day just to make sure there's no issues. Everything seems to be getting appropriate water. And some of these camellias are looking really great. And I feel like, even though I just showed them on video, I don't remember like this having so much growth on it. So it could have grown a couple inches since I planted it a few days ago. I don't know. But everything's living nicely right now. So let's go check out the rose wall. Tony, my lawn robot that I did a review on a couple weeks ago, is still doing a good job. I did reverse the blades, so it would do a better cut. And there was one issue this past Saturday where I think my motion systems went offline. I think it could have been related to everything that was going on with the CrowdStrike Microsoft bug that took a lot of things offline, but mine came back online Sunday, so there was just a day that there was an issue. But I'll keep you updated on how it's performing. Still impressed with it, still doing a really good job. And I went through actually and remapped this rose bed after I got it edged, when was that, Sunday? So that way it could continue cutting without getting into the bed. So the edge on this bed is not as straight as I wanted it to be. I did come through and use my edging machine, but there was a lot of rocks in here, and there was a huge one that it kicked up that kind of knocked it off course, and then it was just all downhill from there. But these roses are doing really great. We had a little bit of an issue with some bugs eating the foliage initially in the summer or in the spring, and ever since then all the new foliage that has come out, I have been using my Heirloom Roses Beneficial Insects on these, and they're hanging on some of the roses from last month. I'll get a new shipment in a couple weeks, but they are growing so well, and I need to come through and put my start doing the trellising of them and put in the wire system that I'm going to run across to trellis them up. But the roses themselves, I need to come through and cut and deadhead some right here, but they smell so nice and they're so pretty. So this is 𝗩𝗜𝗗𝗘𝗦 for those of you who are new to my channel. These were planted in spring from heirloomroses.com, and they're doing really lovely. There's 11 of them here, planted one on each post and then one in the center. And when I visited Oregon I guess about a month and a half ago, I didn't realize these roses are as vigorous and get as big as they are based on what I had seen online. So they are going to be beautiful, and this is going to be a stunning project once it's done. I've been real impressed with the growth on this variety. So since I ran out of mulch, or wood chips, I wasn't able to come through and put more wood chips down after I edged this bed. So I'm hoping I don't have a huge crabgrass problem get out of control. I'm also having issues with this Magnolia here. It just, all of a sudden, the drip that was coming out of it was too far from the root ball. I discovered just the other day. You can see the drip line. I'll just show you so you don't make this mistake. There's a drip line or an emitter here, and this is 18-inch spacing, so there's also one here, and I ran this last fall, and I wrongfully assumed over winter that this plant's root system would spread out more into the ground here and be able to reach the water that's coming out of this drip line. And so I don't know that this plant has had any significant water over this season, and it is on a hill, which also creates issues just trying to get water in there. And I hope I haven't lost it. So I got it on drip the other day, watered it in, and it looks worse than it did just a couple days ago, and every one of these leaves are crunchy and dead, but they're still green on some areas. So I'm going to baby it, and it does have drip now that's running to the root ball. You can see it coming out here. The drip's actually running right now under this crabgrass, and we will keep an eye on it, and hopefully it will come back and settle in. I'm hoping. I really love this one. This is a very pretty one that I got last year. It's called Radiant Rose. It has red-ish blooms on it, and the foliage is interesting. Now what I really came over here to show you is this Flowerful Hydrangea hedge. So I showed these to you in 2 videos ago, and I could probably come through right now and trim off all the blooms to let it set some more root development, but that's not really my style. So it's on drip irrigation. They're getting up to 1.5 gallons a day right now with how much time is running through this timer, and they are looking perfect. There's been no wilting or anything since I planted them. The ground right here is not as nice as it is behind the pool here. This was pretty rocky as I was digging through it. So we'll see how they perform here, but I still think they're going to do really good. It wasn't horrible. There was still a lot of nice soil in there, but just more rocks than other areas of the property that I've seen so far. So these will get 3 to 4 foot tall, which will be shorter than the fence, and then up to 5 foot wide. So they should meet nicely here. And this is north-ish facing, kind of northwest. And so you can see it, they're getting the evening sun here. They'll be protected a little bit during the day from this sparse looking diseased crabapple here that will probably eventually have to be removed. But I'm really excited about this variety. As I've mentioned, they have extremely strong stems. Can test that by doing this. And they're supposed to have 2 to 3 times as many blooms as anything else on the market. So a very floriferous variety. And we're just going to test that out. All right, so what's next? The next project is probably going to be getting the Macrophyllas planted. So that may be 1 or 2 videos depending on how I want to split out. Because I have so many of them, I want to talk a little bit about each variety, and I don't want that video to be too long. So I'll probably do a video talking about them and then get them planted and show you how they're arranged. I may plant them first and then just go around and show you what they look like in the ground and talk about them at the same time. That would probably be the best thing to do. So stick around. I hope you're excited about the hydrangea trialing. I am. And remember, be a light. Take care. Bye.